it's only fair that I begin the panel discussion with Ashish this evening. And Ashish, I know you've read a few and related a few excerpts from the book, but I want you to just say it in your own words on what you felt on your first day when you reached Arunachal Pradesh and Itanagar, and you know how just daunted you were because you were posted there, and how things looked on the last visit that you made there.
Yeah, so I was in Daman actually when I was transferred to Arunachal, and as I was mentioning that it was a long journey from Guwahati, which I took 8 hours, and it was drizzling, and I was put up in a state guest house. It was a bit of a ramshackle building at that time, which was more like a college hostel, and it was underwhelming. So I felt that where have I landed? And at least then I said, okay, let's be practical. At least the weather is nice. But I think in the span of barely 5-6 years, the degree of transformation has been so phenomenal. Today, if you travel to the eastern part of Arunachal Pradesh, for example, where some of our friends are here, you will feel, actually, I'm not exaggerating while you were saying that a little while back, but you will feel that you are in a European setting. The roads are so good. And the tributaries of Brahmaputra, which were earlier, there were no bridges. Today, it's a breeze to cross that bridge. And all tributaries almost have got bridges across them. So I think it's a completely different new Northeast, which you're talking about now. And I think the pace of change and the scale of change is unprecedented. Change happens everywhere, but this is unprecedented in such a short span of time.
Hand on your heart, first time when you went, did you think it was a punishment posting? Because I think in bureaucracy circles, anywhere in that region is called a punishment posting. Of course, include Andaman in that as well.
Actually, you know, I had never been to Arunachal, honestly, when I landed up there, nor had I been to Mizoram, and 20 years ago I went there. But fortunately, you know, in a span of a few days, I discovered the people are so friendly. They're so welcoming, and they made me part of their own community. And for those who have worked there will vouch for what I'm saying. You make fantastic friendships in Arunachal Pradesh, and I have now moved out of that state. It's been, I think, 5 years or 6 years actually. And still, those friendships have endured the test of time.
And that is what is called human relationships that you make. Mr. Hardeep Puri, do you think the Prime Minister and the government that you are part of has put emphasis on the Northeast, and which is why the pace of change is the way it is? Because many governments before yours had also said about the Look East policy, Think East policy. But has there been a difference, and has there been an agenda to take this rather seriously? And how do you experience that when you have discussions? I'm not asking you to divulge any secrets in the cabinet, but has there been an emphasis that you've perceptibly felt?
No, to say that there has been an emphasis would be putting it mildly. I think Kiran, of course, my friend, has the privilege of coming from there, but everyone in the Council of Ministers, and I can speak from my experience for the last 6 years or so that I've been part of the team, we visit the Northeast every month. I have a visit coming up on the 27th and 28th as part of the Vibrant Village program, to stay in a village on the border, absolute at the border. I have visited each state in the Northeast. I tried to get to Tawang once, but the weather packed up on that particular date. But I'm going to go this time. But let me give you some hard facts. Not wishing to put a political spin on this, the fact of the matter is that the processes that have been unleashed or initiated after 2014 have produced some concrete results on the ground. And I can speak from the perspective of the portfolios that I've held, civil aviation in terms of connectivity. When Ashish was a young officer and he used to carry, gunny bag full of capsicum, etc. Now we have fresh vegetables and fresh fruits from the northeast flying on a daily basis from different airports to the Gulf. But I also want to share some other statistics with you which show that it has been a conscious, comprehensive and planned effort to correct whatever neglect there was of those states in the Northeast. And what has it resulted in? Today you have I'm talking since 2014, you have a 74% reduction in incidents involving insurgency, you have 60% reduction in incidents of attacks on security forces, 89% reduction in civilian death, 8,000 youth have surrendered arms and committed to join the mainstream. Agreement has been reached with the National Liberation Front of Tripura, 2019. Historic Bodo Agreement, historic Karbi Anglong Agreement was signed in 2021. 1,000 crore development package for development of the Karbi areas. Yesterday, I had the privilege of meeting the Chief Minister of one of the states. They have a border dispute and it relates to exploration and production in the petroleum sector. The two chief ministers were meeting in the evening and, they're resolving issues. Things are moving. And you see evidence of that in terms of the situation, in terms of visits can be quantity. The Prime Minister has visited the Northeast more than 50 times in the last 8 years. 74 union ministers have visited the region on more than 400 occasions. You have massive increase in budgetary allocations. From 2014, more than 4 lakh crores have been allocated for the region. And I don't want to go into a statistical presentation, but I tell you two things that strike me. I was at another event, which was 100 years of the Delhi University, and they're launching a foundation, so I couldn't, I'm sorry, I was a little late. But today is Civil Services Day. And something I think is in the best interest of the best traditions of the civil service. Well, young civil servants get posted to areas which are new. I mean, during the earlier dispensation, the Northwest Frontier was discovered. Young IAS officers go there. And they not only identify and integrate with the beauty and the charm of the place, but they also then write books in the best tradition of the whole thing. And I want to compliment Ashish for that. I have known Ashish when he was a younger officer. He had a difficult job as the staff officer to a senior minister who was a friend of mine. But I think some of those skills that he honed at that point of time and what he has brought out in the book, Ashish, I've had a chance to leaf through the book since you very kindly gave it to me. But this is what makes the Indian federal experience and the integration of states. What's happened in the Northeast is a story which is well established. But I think it's still work in progress. I mean, I was looking at the civil aviation statistics because I had some hand in some of those. Air connectivity, in the 67 years of our independence, the Northeast had only had 9 airports. In the next 8 years, we should say now 8 plus, another 8 airports have been added. The development of 7 new greenfield airports at Tezu, Dibrugarh, Guwahati, Silchar, Imphal, and Agartala. Air traffic movement in the Northeast has increased 113% since 2014 on a year-by-year basis. So connectivity, taking the fruits of economic development down to the grassroots level, but more than that, the interaction that you have come in, I mean, I see the respect that you have. I mean, this gentleman sitting to my left, who's one of my all-time favorites. So I told him, I said, Chief Minister, I have an event in Delhi University at exactly the same time. So he said, no, you're my friend and you're my senior. I shouldn't say that, from college. He was also in Hindu college, by the way. Amitabh, note, that's the better college. Okay. So what I'm saying is, The fact that a chief minister
Just
makes
because
it a
it's
point,
Hindu?
makes it a point to be here.
Just
and
because
he's
it's
not-
Hindu?
Yes, absolutely. Your son was also there, so what is that about? No, the fact that the chief minister personally takes interest to come down, it is a tribute to the rapport that Ashish has established not only with the administration, but their love and affection for him. So all in all, Ashish, congratulations and greetings straight from the heart. God bless you. Thank you.
Well said. But let me draw in Mr. Rijiju. You are from Arunachal Pradesh, and we've been seeing you as a member of parliament for years. You know, those elections where you would be a young parliamentarian, not at all the standoffish law minister that you are today, but you know, the part that Ashish mentions in his book, he says, British rulers created ingenious instruments of administration that served their enlightened self-interest. The tea plantations had to be protected from savage tribes. Even the missionaries labored to civilize them. Through an act of cartographic wizardry, they divided the region by conjuring an imaginary inner line. The ostensible logic was an act of benevolence towards the hill tribes. The real rationale was quite the converse: to protect British plantations and extractive industry. The isolation of hill tribes was then complete. But even now, Mr. Rijiju, you know, after reading this part of Ashish Kundra's book, I feel we do see a lot of political representatives going there, but there is still those inner line permit issues. How are we going to actually make an integration between the states there and between Northeast and the rest of India?
Well, the issue which you had put together with regards to the national integration, the emotional integration, as well as the socio-economic growth, it's very difficult for me to put together to narrate what is required and what has been done. It will be quite complicated also. So I just break it down into a very simple observation. First of all, integration is not only about connecting through physical infrastructure, but it is also emotional question. And when the Prime Minister himself says that Delhi may be geographically far away from Northeast, but now heart to heart we are close. So the integration is in many ways we need to bring the people closer into our thought process. When it comes to questions like inner line pass, questions like restrictions, there are socio as well as security angles. So I will not like to discuss in detail about that issue because that will totally distract the whole debate. The whole of Northeast is 90%, almost 98% bordering with neighboring countries and 2% physically connected with the rest of the country. So physically we were like prisoners of our own frontiers. We were isolated. We were in a way living on our own world. It was difficult to come out of that situation. As has been explained, Northeast is beautiful, pristine. But I used to endure all these things in my stride, like our beauty was like our curse, or our mountains have become our barriers, the rivers were the bottlenecks, because we didn't have the bridges to build over the rivers. The mountains are difficult for traveling from one place to another place. Northeast is the only region in India which is water surplus. In fact, there are very few regions in the world which are water abundant. You know, from the biodiversity point of view, it is one of the hotspots in the world, laced with natural resources. It's gifted with spectrum of all the natural resources you would find in Northeast. Despite that, the area lagged behind. So if you just go into details what has been described in the book also, the transformation which took place in last 8 years is something which cannot be narrated. If I am to make a political speech, I can talk about many things. But what I have seen is over the last few years, the transformation in Northeast is not discussed in the academic sector, in the academic corridor. Politically, I can understand that no opposition party will give credit to the Modi government for transforming the Northeast. But what stops the intellectual community from really discussing it and putting it to the rest of the people in the country that Northeast has transformed? So I feel that from a strategic point of view, Northeast is the key location for India. And I always say that wherever I stand, I am a very bold person from that perspective. From the very beginning, I believed, wherever I am, that is the mainstream. Don't tell me to join the mainstream. Whatever I speak, that is my mainstream language. Wherever my location is, that is the mainstream India. And to amplify my thinking, Prime Minister has aptly described that the border villages are not the last villages, but they are the first villages of our country. So from that point of view, I feel that today's event is well thought out. I must compliment Ashish Kundra. When I was minister in the Home Ministry, he was posted later on, in fact, not immediately, but later on as administrator in Andaman. So when he was transferred to Arunachal, I thought I must tell him that he might be disappointed coming from urban area and posted in Northeast. But I told him, if you go with a pure heart, you will enjoy. If you expect urban life, you will be disappointed. I have been going to Mussoorie IS Academy till 2009. I was a regular visitor there. I used to tell the trainee officers that, since you're not doing a job, you'd be doing services, please seek transfer or posting to Northeast or difficult areas. That will determine your dedication towards the nation.
Very well said. Mainstream is where you are standing, and clearly that confidence and that position that you take clearly shows the conviction that you have. And with that being translated, let me ask you, Mr. Pema Khandu. Just yesterday, you and the Assam Chief Minister signed an accord ending some of the border disputes that had been going on for 5 decades. I also want to bring to your notice the excerpt from the book which says, an overnight train now links Itanagar and Guwahati. Indian Railways has drawn up an ambitious plan to connect capitals of Mizoram, Sikkim and Nagaland by 2022. Northeastern Railways has commenced work to connect the high-altitude border district of Tawang, your area, with the rail network, constructing a tunnel across the treacherous Sela Pass. So you say this is a befitting reply to China. Why do you think these outstanding issues were pending for so long? Was there no will to resolve these issues, or were they just brushed under the carpet?
Well, Navika ji, since I belong from Arunachal Pradesh, and I often say in my public speech also as well that within the Northeast, Arunachal Pradesh is actually the Northeast, within the Northeast. So over the years, communication has been our bottleneck, but after 2014, the scenario has been completely changed, and which we can clearly find out in Ashish's book also as well. I must mention that this Ashish's book is like a moving poem, that showcases the entire Northeast of all the sectors, those during the past times, what challenges we used to have. What are the present developmental activities that all these states have been undertaken, and what are the future challenges also as well. So it's like moving poetry. So coming back to your queries regarding the, majorly you have asked regarding connectivity. So as mentioned, Arunachal Pradesh, if I talk about my state, it is a very difficult state. We are the largest state in entire Northeast, and as you all know that Arunachal borders 3 international countries, Bhutan, Tibet, and Myanmar. So over last 8 to 9 years, if I mention about the road density, after independence till 2015, the road density in kilometers, it was hardly 20,000 kilometers. But over last 7 to 8 years, we have built additional 20,000 kilometers in last 8 years. So compare after independence till 2015, just a road network of 20,000 kilometers. So after independence, after 15-16, additional 20,000 kilometers we could have been able to add. So all our highways are, having very fantastic highways. Being an Arunachali, we can't expect, sports car, there's all the supercars traveling in Arunachal Pradesh, but we do have. This time we had second edition of sports car, that rally in Arunachal Pradesh. And railway is going to change the entire scenario of Northeast as a whole. 2015, our Itanagar, Naharlagan, the twin capital was connected by railway. And along the foothill which borders Assam, the entire stretch is under construction of further railway tracks. And those ambitious programs are being stretched till Tawang, which is my district. And also in central Arunachal, there's a place called Alo. So all the survey works has been done, and very soon these works will be starting. So as mentioned by Ashish Kundra ji, majorly in air connectivity also, we have been able to make many advanced landing ground apart from the recently built Itanagar Greenfield Airport. In total, we have built around 8 advanced landing ground in Arunachal Pradesh, and which is operational. But as of now, under Udan, 3 airports are operational in Arunachal Pradesh. So likewise, communication is the bottleneck network and a problem for us, and it has all these issues are being addressed by the present government, union government.
Well, let me get in Puneet Chatwal, and his view into this. Puneet Chatwal, everybody talks about the fact that pristine beauty in the Northeast, and that we've probably ignored it. But the tourist inflow in the Northeast, very paltry compared to the numbers in other places in India. I want to ask you as an investor, as somebody who's in the hospitality business, where do you see the logjam? Where do you see the problems that still exist for investments and growth actually to happen in that region?
Thank you. I think first of all, we have to say that we have invested in the Northeast. And one of our very good investments has been the Vivanta in Guwahati. And we started the ginger brand actually in Agartala. So it was one of the first 3 locations that we chose for ginger was Agartala. And we have, as a listed company, we have given guidance that we will be doing 25 hotels in the Northeast in operation or under development by 2025. That's a very big number. So we are fully committed because coming from what we are popularly called as a Taj Group and the House of Tata's nation building has been on the top of the agenda. And we will be also investing our own money, which we may not be doing in several other destinations. This is to, to provide the support that is needed for what was just now mentioned. The emotional integration happens through culture. One of the key attributes of culture is your food, is your music. So that Ashish can get good butter chicken in Arunachal and doesn't have to carry all the stuff that he was carrying, and vice versa, that we get to hear this music and singing in Punjabi by, the lovely ladies that we experience. That only happens through travel. That happens through exchange, that you experience everything that Ashish said, the first 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, how the world changed. And the travel can happen through investment in infrastructure. And I think the government's focus on infrastructure, of course, a lot has been said, a lot has been done, has been fantastic for the growth of tourism. And the tourism development is not only important for building the culture or for building the emotional connect, but also for creating jobs, for also creating indirect jobs. It's the best multiplicator of jobs. So what has not happened? What has not happened?
And don't let the two union ministers from the BJP and one chief minister from the BJP hold you back in
definitely
what not happened.
We, as a sector, this is independent of, as CII, as whatever, Hotel Association, we have had just one single point agenda in which we have been consistently requesting the government to give the proper infrastructure status to the tourism sector at a center level and in all states an industrial status. That's a state subject because tourism is a state subject. But the center could do that. So that will increase investments and that provides the required moratorium or cheaper loans so that more and more capital will flow in. And I see no reason why this cannot be done because it does not cost anything. And we have been talking about this and discussing that for a very long time. And there is no better opportunity than this evening with the support of the audience and with all the key people sitting here and lobbying for Northeast. This is the best opportunity and I don't want to let go of it.
I don't want to...
Mr. Hardeep Puri is itching to come in on that one.
Now, please don't misunderstand me. I've been a long-standing admirer of the Taj Group, even from the time this was called the Fonseca Hotel, where this is situated. And, you guys are building up Parliament, new Parliament. You've taken over Air India and all that. So don't get me wrong. I think you guys are doing a great job. I've traveled in the last 4 or 5 days. I've been in Somnath. I've been in Andhra Pradesh. I've been in Tirupati. I have, I'm going... Look, tourism, domestic tourism in India is taking off as never before. Maybe it's a reaction to the pent-up desire to travel because of the lockdowns during the COVID period, whatever it's taking off. But one piece of advice, all the place there is standardization, why should he have his butter chicken? Just because he's a Punjabi. I think your hotel should be encouraging local cuisine. I'd like to see more northeastern dishes on it. And after all these years in the Northeast, his culinary preferences should also change. I'm just pulling your leg here.
Well, Mr. Amitabh Kant, you're a Sherpa today, but you're also somebody who's called the startup man. So I want to just read an excerpt from the book which says, Tage Rita, daughter of a progressive farmer from zero, was born with an indomitable spirit. After securing a degree in agricultural engineering 2 decades ago, she joined a government job like most others. Meanwhile, kiwi cultivation had taken firm in the valley. She was anguished to see fruits of her father's labor rotting away in the absence of a market. She quit her secure job and made a bold gambit. Inspired by the Sula vineyards, she started a winery with a loan of just 40 million rupees, that's about 4 crores, to launch India's first organic kiwi wine, Nara Aba, in 2017. Ironically, its beautifully labeled bottles are imported from China. Over 300 kiwi farmers supply fruit for her winery, which produces 60,000 liters of wine annually. So far, the sales are limited only to Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, and Meghalaya, though she has global ambitions. And she says, I left my job to chase a dream. Entrepreneurship in agriculture is not as glamorous as you soil your hands and feet to connect with the earth. But this is where our roots lie. She says philosophically, the question is that sometimes, especially places in the Northeast might require that little bit of an extra pull, push, call it what you will.
Navika, let me first compliment Ashish, because I'd read a lot of his bureaucratic notings on government files, and which were pretty awful. I never knew that he could write such wonderful.
Your ACR is in trouble, Ashish.
I never knew that he could write such wonderful English. So first of all, the book is beautifully written. I mean, I finished this entire book in about 3.5 hours non-stop, because it has a lot of human element. I mean, he brings out a vast number of stories of young people who've made a difference to local enterprise, who brought in entrepreneurship, who made a difference in terms of sports. There's a beautiful story about Mary Kom, and there's a huge write-up on how sporting culture has made such a difference in Northeast, and how sportsmen, with all their passion, have done so remarkably well in both boxing and in football. So it's a remarkably well-written book, and one of the great things about this is about local enterprise, and I want to touch upon this, because my belief is that while we've provided all this connectivity, and remarkable work has been done by the government in terms of providing this connectivity from Dibrugarh to Pasighat, and roads have been transformed, and I've just returned from Meghalaya. Beautiful connectivity all over the Northeast now, including air connectivity. But it's very, very important, to the point which Mr. Hardeep Puri said, that these are experiential destinations. It's very important that we must ensure that the local experience must thrive. It's very important that the local art, the local culture, the local cuisine must flourish in all these places. And it's very important that even when Taj goes there, it's a global brand, but it must remain local in ethos. And that is, and I've been a great believer that Northeast should never become a mass destination. It must remain a high-value destination. Northeast must sell at $1,500 a night. That's the high value which we must get from Northeast, because it's the most unique destination in the world today. What Arunachal, Meghalaya, Nagaland provide is a unique culture which is just not available anywhere else in the world. And therefore, my belief is, from the book, what comes out truly is that it's a differentiated product from any other part of India. It's a differentiated product from any other part of the world. And the world of tourism and travel works on differentiation. And therefore, my belief is that the great thing about Northeast is that young people have started disrupting in many ways. I was in Itanagar, and the kiwi you get there is better than the kiwi from New Zealand. And the kiwi wine that you get is better than any wine in the world.
But the wine bottles are Chinese.
Yeah, so, I think we are in the process of evolution. Soon you'll see.
And wait. You said experiential, $1,500 per night. He's talking about domestic tourism. Somewhere there is a disconnect. Domestic tourism, how many of you in the audience think $1,500 a night is going to encourage domestic tourism?
So Navika, let me tell you, when we started off Kerala, Kovalam Beach was a $20 a night destination. Today, room doesn't sell. In Kerala, room doesn't sell for less than $500 a night. That's how it moved up the value chain.
But you're saying that you start with 1,500. My question to you is,
Northeast must be a product of great boutique resorts. It cannot be a product of brick and mortar. That's what I'm saying. You have to create local enterprise. You have to create local jobs. You have to bring in the local culture. You have to bring in the local cuisine. You have to bring in the local handloom and handicraft. That's the way for creating a unique Northeast experience.
And what about the wines? Can they be sold outside of Arunachal Pradesh? And
Kiwi wine, as this young lady entrepreneur will expand and grow, this Kiwi brand will become the biggest brand in India and the world in due course.
On its own?
Yeah. It'll get all the support.
With no help from Delhi?
Delhi is providing all the help in terms of better connectivity, better infrastructure, What government of India is now providing in the last 5 to 6 years is enormous in terms of better marketing outlets. I was in Meghalaya, and the Meghalaya experience, the outputs in terms of bamboo, etc., which they've provided, it's really top class. I mean, so see, the government should not get into private enterprise. Never do that.
Okay. Let me ask Mr. Kiran Rijiju once. You know, the elephant in the room and something that is the discourse in mainland is about how secure is the Northeast, how much is the China challenge that we face. And is that an issue in the Northeast? Considering you have a bird's eye view, are we secure as a nation?
As a nation, there's no reason that not only Northeast or Arunachal Pradesh, every inch, every part of Indian territory is secured. But the question is, if there are some narratives being created that there are security concerns, which is because of the behavior of another nation, then it is totally misplaced. We can't regulate the control of another nation. A sovereign nation has its own way of dealings and doings and taking stands. But as long as our security, our territory is concerned, it is well taken care of. Just to take you through vision of what I look at. Before 2014, I was member of parliament. As a young member of parliament, I used to shout in the parliament literally to tell the government of the day that we require basic infrastructure to be created along the McMahon line. Not only that, even the other side of the boundary in Myanmar side also. But when the then government clearly stated that there is a security concern to develop fully right up to the border area. But this policy was reversed without making any kind of announcement. Now it is very clear that Prime Minister has reversed the old thinking and old policy of not developing the extreme border areas. Every border point is well connected. Now, you're talking about the tourism. These border locations will no more be prohibited areas, but these dots will all become tourist destinations. Secondly, you're talking about today, the cuisines are becoming filled with all kind of ideas and your views. What I want to say is, this is sensitive matter, but I have to say it. If a person from any part of India comes to Northeast, the people in Northeast are always careful about arranging the food items which is suitable or which is the choice of the visitors. If Amitabh Kant, when he was secretary, joint secretary, if he visits Northeast, invariably the local committee will arrange matar, paneer or something which is suitable for him. So I fully endorse Hardeep Puri's statement that when you go to a location, why only enjoy the culture and locations alone? You must taste the local cuisines. The foreigners, in lighter mode, but I'm telling it, people say that when a foreigner from any country, food is not a tension. But when a person from, any other states in India come, they definitely have a problem in food. So I would prefer that wherever you go.
Because there are many bans also that your government has imposed.
If I go to Orissa, I make sure that I eat Oriya food. Whenever I go to Tamil Nadu, I make sure that the Tamil foods are available. Same way, when you go to Northeast, please taste Northeast food.
By the way, he's not from the Aloo Matar, he's from Kerala. So, when he goes to the Northeast, why do you guys give him paneer?
Yes, God's own country eats everything that's moving. Well,
Sorry, I think I think we have to also acknowledge the fact that hospitality cannot just survive on tourists coming in. There is something called people traveling on business, people traveling for spirituality, people traveling for discovering new destinations, people, what we are now calling like heal in India, medical tourism. So there are various things and you have to cater to all needs. I think it's important to answer these questions in that fashion instead of getting lost in Matar Paneer and butter chicken, because Ashish mentioned that, right?
Absolutely. But
also, if somebody is going for spiritual tourism to Kamakya temple in Guwahati and you charge $1,500 per night, then we'll have to open a Gurdwara Langar service for those poor pilgrims.
And important is whether the Gurdwara Langar service will be in local food or the typical Gurdwara food.
you give up. You give up. Okay. There is another excerpt from the book that I want to put out here, and it's important because Kundra, Ashish Kundra writes about the difference on how South Bloc sees Northeast and how North Bloc sees the Northeast. And as a quintessential reporter, overgrown into an editor, but still with the heart of a reporter, I want to ask you, how you've been in the South Bloc and now you've possibly heard about the concerns of the North Bloc. How do these two, reconcile when you have to talk of increasing trade that very often the South Bloc would recommend, other ministries would recommend, but security concerns that North Bloc would red flag all the time. How do you reconcile these two sides?
First of all, I don't think any reconciliation is required, because I think insofar as the post-2014 scenario that I have been a part of at least since 2016-17, I think the point that Kiran made was, Minister Rijiju made was very pertinent, that you had these schisms between these differences of perception between South and North Bloc, which means basically what she means is the security establishment on the one side and those who have to look at the, the economic integration and do the encouragement. But that all changed. I don't think there was any policy decision taken or announced. It just happened. Today, I'm not saying this because she's a colleague of ours. I don't think the North Bloc has been, if you mean the finance ministry, has been found wanting in terms of...
I was talking about the home ministry.
No, home ministry I'm coming to in a minute. There are two components. Even in South Bloc, there is defense and external affairs, and there is not... So finance ministry has been easily forthcoming in terms of resources required, whether for donor or for the kind of schemes that the other central ministries run. Insofar as the home ministry is concerned, I have seen a gradual change taking place, and I think the best pictorial depiction you can have is this home minister with the two chief ministers as of yesterday, each one being encouraged to solve the problem. So I think after 2014, there is a paradigmatic shift which is taking place in terms of the government of India's approach, and that is what you see in terms of the results.
Mr. Pema Khandu, very often people do talk about the fact that what happens in the Northeast has deep ties with what happens in regions that are adjoining, maybe even Myanmar, etc. How do local people react there on issues that take place in Myanmar, whether it's a military coup, whether it is an action that is taken across the border? Sometimes there is a sense that maybe their emotions lie more with some of those areas because the cultural ties are strong, and at one point they may have been contiguous. Today they are part of India. How does that work? And I'm not asking this from a journalistic perspective. I want to ask you as a people's perspective, as somebody who comes from the Northeast, how do you explain on what people there feel?
Navika ji, in fact, Northeast is a very diverse state. Every state has its own dynamics, different types of people, different ethnicity. So like, if I talk about my state in Arunachal Pradesh, we are totally around 27 major tribes and more than 100 subtribes. So people who are residing in eastern part of Arunachal, they share a common ties with, say, for example, Southeast Asian countries, like maybe Thailand, to some extent, some religious and cultural ties are there. And if I talk about Tibet also, there are many tribes in Arunachal Pradesh that can be found in Tibet also as well. So due to this international barrier and all, since Tibet and India, we don't have an access from anywhere. But in Myanmar and all, Myanmar and rest part of these Southeastern countries, even our delegates also often visit to their countries. And majorly the eastern part of Arunachal, whenever there is a major festival, their delegates also used to visit in our state. Like way back in 60s, for example, if we talk about Bangladesh, there was a religious persecution there, from where then at that time the Chakmas were settled in Arunachal Pradesh. There's a place called Changlang area. So likewise, there is a feeling of oneness, and same like in Mizoram also. Mizoram, they have their own autonomous bodies for Chakmas. So definitely there is, as a humanitarian, there is definitely a soft corner for the people across.
And with the rest of India?
Obviously.
Ashish, to you I'll ask just simply this. Which was the most touching part that you expressed in the book from your point of view in terms of an experience that you now have shared with your readers?
I think I would not like to pinpoint on one particular experience, but centrally the people of Northeast which make it magical. So Arunachal, for example, when I worked there, they're very friendly, outgoing, boisterous also, and yes, and when you go to Mizoram, they are a shy community, so but they are very polite. For them, politeness is a great virtue. So if you start shouting, screaming, you're not liked at all. So
yes. You didn't invite any Punjabi friends?
No, well, I myself was there, but I think I learned it pretty fast that that's not the way to go. And so it is a completely different cultural landscape. It is not one entity or a monolith that we are talking about. Each state is different. Within each state, there are diversities of a completely different order which we think and get in the rest of India. That is what it is.
Well, clearly, this book is a labor of love. And it will be important for everybody present here today and anybody who wants to explore an unknown part of India, which is the Northeast, not discovered very well by the rest of us. It is true, and there is, no saying that we Indians haven't really paid as much attention to the Northeast as we should. But the emotion that comes from Mr. Kiran Rijiju, from Mr. Pema Kandu here is that mainstream is there. It is up to us to link up to that mainstream. For now, I'd like to thank all our esteemed guests on the panel for joining us on this very, very interesting book. And I would request everybody in the audience to please read it. Maybe the exploration of the Northeast is something we've put off too long, and it's time to take it up and find joy in the pristine culture, the nature, and the life and times of the Northeast. And thank you very much for putting out this resurgent Northeast and focusing attention, Ashish Kundra, in the middle of your very, very stressful bureaucratic life.